Aloha and welcome to Spirit Chat Radio. So it's been a minute since I've been on, and I am finally back. I've been working a lot on the new classes and things that I am offering for the up and coming year. So that's taken a little bit of time, but I should be getting back on track and doing my podcast again. So I'm glad to be back, and hopefully you guys missed me. That being said, today I want to cover a topic which I would like people to understand, or truly kind of, understand as they get into learning about their psychic senses and their psychic abilities, or learning about them. And that is basically, how do your psychic senses help you? How are they beneficial? I'm going to talk about 7 ways that your psychic senses are beneficial. 7 ways that they're helpful to your life, and why that you should be looking at developing them, or why you might be drawn to develop them. But why bother? Why even bother in the first place? There's some very good reasons that we have our psychic senses, and there's some very good reasons of why we're naturally built with the ability to tune into them. And I think that sometimes people get excited about the wow, I knew that factor, or if somebody's gonna call and then they do, and then that feels good to surprise themselves that they have this extra knowledge that they don't know where they got but it, or where it came from, and it just feels good to have that extra little ability of some kind. And I think that sometimes people get sort of addicted to that feeling without realizing there's so much more than just that little feeling that you get. There's so much more to why we have these senses, and why you should be developing them on a daily basis. There's just so much more to it that will enhance your life. And I think that gets overlooked a lot. So I want to talk about this a little bit more. And we're going to talk about 7 ways of why you would want to develop your psychic senses. And a couple of them you're going to automatically know, but we still need to cover. One of them, I think a lot of people really want, and I think that they're aware of this one, which is part of the reasons we have them, is for extra guidance. Guidance in making decisions, guidance in things moving forward. Should I go this direction or that direction? Should I make this choice or that choice? Should I take this job or that job? Should I stay at this job? Should I go into this relationship? Should I leave this relationship? Should I move to this place? It is really nice and helpful to have some extra guidance moving forward, where you're feeling a little bit more confident in your decision, and you're feeling a sense of calmness of when you make that decision. And when you tune in and learn to develop your psychic senses, you will learn to tune into that part of yourself that will bring you a little bit of extra confidence. You will learn to be more aware of the sensations, to bring more calmness. And as you develop further, there begins to become a trust thing that happens as they develop, as your senses develop, and as you see some results, and as you trust that you're on the right track with all these things, then you will become more confident, then you will use them more. It's kind of like a whole domino effect. So most people understand the guidance factor, that they would like some more guidance moving forward, and that it's helpful when making decisions on stuff. Now, the interesting thing with the guidance factor, though, that I find is you might be in tune with your own senses, and you might be developing your own senses. But even when you do gain the confidence, I find more often than not people ignore the extra guidance. Even though they have it, maybe you've developed well, it's really common for people to still ignore it. That's the whole learning to retrain your brain and your thought process and everything that goes along with it, because I find it interesting that they wanted it, they develop it, and then they ignore it because they're still stuck in the pattern of the physical thinking and feeling like, okay, well, I should make this decision because it makes sense on paper, would be how I call the physical thinking. If you do your pros and cons on paper, it makes sense. And so because of that, many times they'll still push aside the extra guidance, and then they'll just make a decision based on what looks good on paper. And then they get frustrated and realize, of course, most people realize, regardless of if you're developed or not developed, if you have that in-tune sense of I should do this, but then on paper it looks good like this, so I'm going to do the on paper thing, and then you're like, oh, I knew it. I knew I shouldn't have done that. And then you do it again, and then next time it comes up, and then you do it again. That is super common. If you're one of those people, that comes with training and trust, and you have to learn to trust your intuition and your development more than you want to have some pros and cons on paper that that's just guessing at a probable outcome as well. That's what I find interesting. So when you're a reader, when you're developing your intuitive skills, you're moving forward based on what you're seeing as a probable outcome, what you're feeling as a good probable outcome. And when you put pros and cons on paper, that's still a probable outcome. That doesn't mean that something's going to turn out exactly. You're still that's a guessing game just as much. But for some reason, people seem to think that if they weigh data, pros and cons of their knowledge that has happened in the past, they many times feel more confident in their decision moving forward. Which I find that really fascinating. I find it even more fascinating talking about it right now, because why do people just think that just because something happened in the past a certain way, or that they had a certain experience with something, it's going to turn out very similar, if you take all that data and put it together, because every situation is different. Your life is always changing. So you're putting a lot of confidence in something that is just based on a probable outcome. I choose the probable outcome based on my intuition almost all the time. I would be lying if I said I did it 100% of the time. I always do it on big decisions, but sometimes I'll just be like, yeah, maybe I'll do it this way. And then I'll be like, I don't even, really stupid. I don't know why I did it that way. So every once in a while, I even remind myself, never, ever, ever, ever do I do it on big decisions, ever. It'll just be like weird little things like, should I buy this paper or this paper? I feel like I should get this, but this is on sale, stuff like that. And then it turns out like, why would I even do that? So extra guidance is one of the ways that your psychic senses can help you. But the key is not to ignore the extra guidance, which is very hard for people. People will work through that often. And you may be beginner, you may be developed, but working through the extra guidance part might be something you struggle with always. But if you could mostly use it in a way that helps you move forward, make decisions, and in a positive way, then that's really the key. The key is to use it as much as you can, don't beat yourself up over the times that you just ignored it. Just go use that for extra, more like confidence. And yep, I knew I should have turned out that way. That should actually be a confidence booster, even if you ignore it and then it turns out the way that you thought you should have went intuitively. So that can help. Number 2 would be, it brings clarity to a lot of situations. When you tune into your intuition and your psychic senses, whether you're in a situation with a person or people, or you're in some drama, or you're in a situation at work, or what it doesn't matter what the thing is. It can help bring clarity when you learn to tune into your psychic senses, because when you learn and when you're properly trained to use your psychic senses, you will be able to pull back from a situation and gain some clarity and be able to see the situation from afar a little bit. You then, release your own emotions and your own perspective as you learn. Like I said, this takes training, but as you develop and as you're properly trained, you will learn to separate and you will learn to pull back a minute, and that will gain you a lot of clarity, because when you pull back and separate your own emotions or perspective from a situation, that allows the you be able to read a situation better from a neutral standpoint. When you can read a situation better from a neutral standpoint, you will be able to gain clarity, because you'll be able to see some pictures clairvoyantly, clairaudiently. You'll be able to read the energy a little bit better and see. It's like if you take a situation at work or something, and maybe they made a decision that didn't make you very happy, and you're trying to deal with that. If you pull back and use your psychic senses, you most likely will see that they had maybe the company struggling with budget cuts. Maybe there's somebody at your company who is struggling for power and they have their own insecurities, and so they made decisions based on that. Instead of being very reactive to a situation, you can actually gain clarity by just pulling back and observing for a minute with your intuitive senses, and it will give you a much broader picture and fill in the gaps. When people don't do that, when they're reactionary towards something, a situation or a person or something, it's almost like even if you're watching a movie, it's like pretend like you take a movie, you pause on that one scene and you focus in on one area of that scene. It's not very helpful to get the full picture. When you tune into your senses, it's like you're allowing the movie to play. You're getting a larger scene and a larger picture of what's actually happening, all the little things that are falling into place to make that certain situation. So it gives you a lot more clarity when you can pull back and see a larger energetic framework of what other things are in play behind the scenes. And that might sound a little bit advanced and complicated, but it's basically, instead of looking at something under a microscope, you're pulling back and you're looking at the full scene, and that will bring you a lot of clarity. But in order to do that, you need to detach, and that is taught, or we teach that. I teach that in my classes anyways. When you're properly learning how to develop your senses, you will learn how to detach, and that's pretty necessary actually, when it comes to, especially if you're an empath, when it's coming to psychic development. You really do need to learn how to separate your energy from other energy of people and situations and things, and that takes work. That's not something you're going to do right away. It's not something you're going to do overnight, or even sometimes it might even take you years to learn how to do that, but there are ways that you can learn how to do that. So that brings us to number 3, which would be energetic awareness and learning how to read energies. That's another way that developing your psychic senses are helpful. That's another reason that you would want to be in tune with your psychic senses, is to be more energetically aware. You will be more aware of energies around you. The more that you tune into your psychic senses, the more that you will be very aware of different energies when you're properly trained. Again, I keep saying this, and I'm not doing this on purpose, but the more that I'm trying to teach about it, the more I realize that some people who are not properly trained, when they develop their intuitive senses or their psychic senses, they tend to have an overload of energies that they're now sensing and feeling, because you develop, you raise your vibration. As you raise your vibration, you tune into more energies. And as you do that, it's like an influx and an overload of energies. And if you're not properly trained again, there's that separation factor in there where you're not realizing, you just become very overwhelmed and you're just reading into all this stuff that's going on around you and feeling more intensely. It's kind of like if you were to go out on a cloudy day, would be like a regular you, or you go out at high noon at 106-degree weather with just completely no cloud cover, and you start to feel the sun on your skin. That can be what happens, that the same sort of experience when you tune into energies, when you raise your vibration and you're not really protecting yourself and you're not really understanding the separation, and the separation comes with learning the protection, then you have so much coming at you so intensely that it doesn't feel good. It feels overwhelming, and it feels strong, and it feels like it affects you in a sunburny type of way. But that is also helpful to be able to read energies, because when you can read energies, when you have that sort of under control and you do have the proper training, then you can read energies of situations, you can read energies of people, you could read energies of places, and that allows you to gain clarity on situations and use the extra guidance. So they all work in a really nice way together. This combination of all of these things that your psychic senses are helping you do really will work together very nicely. The more that you read energy as well, you will start becoming aware of energies around you, which actually brings us to the next one, which is number 4, shedding light on universal laws and universal energy. And like I said, they all kind of work hand in hand together. So the more that you're aware of energies of people, places, and things, you will start to feel and notice energy moving and flowing. You will start to be able to eventually, the more that you're aware of it, the more that you pay attention, the more you tune in, you will start to feel energy that's moving, and you will begin to feel energy that's chaotic, and you will be able to feel energy that's blocked. And you may not necessarily see it like a ball of twine that's all blocked and chaotic, but you will feel it. It will feel edgy, irritable, kind of weird. If you're feeling energy that's flowing, you're going to feel that nice free feeling. You're going to feel positivity. You're going to feel like a really kind of euphoric, nice flow. Once you learn to read energy and be tuned into into energies, you will definitely know the difference between that nice free flowing energy and then energy that is very edgy, very irritating, very or even energy that has a negative undertone to it. You will be able to discern the difference. And the more that you're discerning the difference, which is the reading energy part, you will start to realize that actually will be tied to potential outcomes of situations with people and places and things. And so you will notice that there's a correlation and there's a connection between different energies that are attached to different places and different people, and then potential outcomes of situations or events that manifest. And somewhere in there, a lot of people have an aha moment, because they're like, there's something more to this. It's not just that people made these choices and then this happened. Something felt a certain way, something flowed a certain way, or didn't flow a certain way, and then all of a sudden this event occurred or this type of situation manifested, but I could feel it going that way because it just felt off to me, or it felt really good to me. So I knew, because of the nice flowing, that something positive was going to happen. This probable outcome was mostly going to be positive because I could feel it. I could feel the flow. And then you start to become more aware of universal energy, and you start to be going, okay, you can start predicting things earlier. You can start going, all right, well, this is feeling not so good to me, so something has to shift, or some other I need some extra guidance, and or you pull back with the clarity and go, okay, I need to do something to resolve this particular energy to make it feel different to me, so that the outcome doesn't turn out how this energy is feeling. This energy is feeling not so good, which I know will make the outcome be not feeling so good to me. So I need to be able to shift that energy so that I'm putting or feeling a different energy flow that feels better to me. And like I said, these all tie together, because then when you're looking to try to fix that energy, because you start to learn and see from experience and from your observations that in the past, as you watch people and things and stuff happen in your own life that didn't feel so good, not turn out so good, but then you notice things that started feeling better to you turn out better, and then you start playing with it. You start doing something different, where how about if I can change this energy? Is there a way I can shift this energy to make it feel better to me, to make it feel like it's flowing better to me? And then you try that, and then you realize that once you did, it did start feeling better, and then a better outcome happened. Then you start gaining confidence, and then you start wanting to be very observant of all energy around you and constantly rework the energy that comes into your area, into your energetic awareness, and you start wanting to rework it in a way that is a nice flowing energy. Now, you're not going to do this all the time, because some days you're going to have an off day and you're just not going to care and you're too tired. But for the most part, you will find it becomes addictive and fascinating when you learn to tune into your senses. You start working with the extra guidance, you start seeing clarity, which leads you to reading energy, which now leads you to understanding universal energy better. And then you start realizing that you actually have a lot more control over a lot of things in your life, and a lot of things that you're wishing to be in your life, than you ever thought you had, or than you ever had before. Because when you weren't paying attention to all this extra guidance, the clarity, the energy, you were doing the paper thing. I'm going to make decisions based on and not that you're actually writing these down on lists, but in your head, whatever. I just call it the paper, the pros and cons list. When you're making decisions based on paper, whether it's on paper or in your head, you're just guessing. You're not using any extra information. You're using past information, and everything's changing all the time. So you need to use more current energy and information when you're working with future situations. That's it. And also, when you become more in tune with your psychic senses, you have access. With this energy, you don't just have access to things you're manifesting, you have access to future energy and what's out there and already in the works, in the making. So you're not working, at that point you're working with present and future energy. When you're making decisions based on paper, you're working with past energy that does not always repeat itself. So it's very interesting how that can shed a lot of light and give you a lot of aha moments when it comes to making decisions and understanding how things work. And when you start understanding all of these things that I've been talking about, you'll notice with people around you. Even if you don't notice in your own life as much, maybe you haven't gained as much confidence, you will start to notice with other people that are in your life that are making certain decisions, or that you feel like they're being off on their decision, and you feel like you see a different way for them. Now, just an FYI, I don't encourage necessarily you putting your input into those people's situations unless they're asking for it, because a lot of times they're not receptive. But you can observe and see, and then just watch and see if the decisions they were making based on paper, even though it felt weird to you, were they the right decisions. A lot of times you're going to start being able to notice, yep, that probably shouldn't have went that way. I could feel that they probably should have made this decision. It's helpful to do that because it can detach your own emotional feelings. When you're dealing with your own life, you can desire and want something so badly that you can actually, it can hinder you working with your psychic senses until you learn to trust that you have a lot more control than you realize you do. And that also brings me to something that is kind of interesting, which is in health and healing. When you start learning all of these things and you start learning energy, when you start paying attention to energetic flow and wanting to resolve energetic movement that feels chaotic to you, and you start noticing the pattern behind how things feel to you and how a probable outcome is going to be, and you start wanting to resolve anything that doesn't feel good to you, and you start wanting to rethink it and adjust your perspective and tune in better to what other extra guidance might be out there. Many times when you are aware of energy and when you learn to work with energy, which is being in tune with your psychic senses, you will see improved health. A lot of times that allows your body to heal, or you will release some energy that's been attached to you in a chaotic manner, because once you become aware of reading energy, and I'm not attached to you, but your own energetic system, as you begin to read energy, you will want to smooth out all the wrinkles. You won't want any chaotic energy because it won't feel awesome. The more that you're in tune with your psychic senses, the more that you are aware of energy around you and in your own body, the more you will want to release anything that doesn't feel good, and you will want to make choices, and you will shift your perspective to do anything to allow that energy to free flow and to iron out and to move forward positively. And when you do that, you will be more aware of things that kind of jack up your energy flow, things that make you feel edgy, things that you're kind of holding on to. And when you're aware of that energy that you're holding on to that is not making you feel so good, it's making you feel negative, it's making you feel angry, it's making you feel edgy, you won't want to hold on to that stuff anymore. You will want to release it as soon as possible, because you will start to discern it just feels better, and your brain has more knowledge now, and your brain's like, okay, I release this, I feel better, and I need to let it go. I need to let this out of my system. And that allows energy to align better with your physical body and your spiritual body, and that allows any weird chaotic energy to be released, and that allows the natural healing to occur. You stop resisting so many things, and you just start allowing that nice free flowing energy. And healing energy is nice and free flowing. If you have a chaotic energy and you allow healing energy, and it just bounces all over the place, and it doesn't really do its job so well, it's moving around, it's going in a circle, it's all knotted up. And so you want to release any knotted up energy, and you'll be a lot more aware of that when you're tuning into your psychic senses. And for that reason, a lot of times people who start becoming more in tune, when they're properly understanding all these things that we're talking about, they will then want to again release any energy that's not feeling free flowing with their own system, which many times leads to improved health or healing of some kind, or just feeling better. And when you begin to feel better energetically, a lot of things physically will follow. A lot of things spiritually and emotionally will follow when you begin to feel stronger energetically and better energetically, which will also lead to transformation, because now, as you've moved through all of these things and you're understanding the psychic senses and how they work, and how all of these things, like a domino effect, all these things work hand in hand to really change how you're living and change the flow of what's coming into your life and change potential outcomes, then your thinking begins to change, and you start not trusting the on paper stuff so much no more, and you start realizing that you have a lot more control of things that you're bringing into your life that you desire. You have a lot more control over creating and manifesting. You have it's much bigger. The picture is so much bigger and you learn to work with all these energies and all of this movement and all of this extra guidance and the clarity. You begin to work with a lot more of your spiritual body. It will begin to transform your thinking, which will transform a lot of things in your life, which will bring about the last thing, which is change. So transformation of your thinking, your belief system will eventually shift over if you become very in tune and you start really paying attention and wanting to learn a different way when it comes to development. The transformation in your thinking will occur, which brings about change. And that's when you're really, everything will solidify. So you will go through these in baby steps a lot of times. And if you get hung up on them, and a lot of people get hung up on number one, they get hung up on the extra guidance part. They don't trust. You have to go through. You have to go through further. You have to get to the clarity part and detaching yourself. You have to start being more energetically aware. And then that brings you to understanding that there's more universal laws and more to life and how we live and how plants grow and how situations occur. It allows you to start really understanding and seeing and feeling that. It allows proof of that. Things, you will start adjusting energy in your life, and you will start seeing proof that when you adjust that energy and you adjust your thinking and you use that guidance, that things actually work out better for you, which will allow everything to align up in your health and how you're feeling, and allow spiritual strength to come in, which makes you even believe in it more, which is the transformation of thinking, which allows you to change your life. So it's a whole bunch of stuff that works together, and it feels good. A lot of people will be like, okay, I want to just tune into my senses. I want to develop them, and I think they're helpful because it feels good. You want to know why it feels good? Because you are working now with your whole self. So many times, or a lot of people, are not working with their whole self. They're working with their physical body, and they're working on paper with past information to make decisions for future outcomes. And while some of those things are good, I'm not saying don't use that knowledge that you've gained through all your years of life experience. Of course you want to use that knowledge, but you want to take that knowledge and you want to couple it with extra knowledge of probable future outcomes. You want to work together. You want it to work in tandem. You want to weigh in both. You want to use your whole self. And when you begin to use your whole self, which is the entire point of tuning into your psychic senses, because that allows you to tune into your spiritual body, and it allows you to feel your spiritual body. And then, so now you're feeling your physical body, you're feeling your spiritual body, and something in you begins to vibrate, and it begins to come alive, and it begins to feel good. There's an area of your spiritual body between your collarbone and your belly button that will begin to vibrate, and you will be like, wow, like I feel good when I'm in tune with this. It makes me feel something I haven't felt in a long time. It makes me feel almost euphoric or happy, or it doesn't matter if it's positive at all, that you will begin to vibrate right there when you use your two bodies together. And the key is to just, try to align your bodies to where you're having that feeling more often than you're not having the feeling, especially when you need to, when you're needing to use it to make choices and to create your probable future outcome. And it feels good. It feels good to use your whole body. That's like using both your hands together to pick up something. They work in tandem, instead of just using one hand or the other hand all the time to do whatever, to type, to cook, to whatever. It's easier and it's wonderful to use both hands, and that feels good when you're using both bodies. These are the reasons that you would want to use your psychic senses. These are why having your psychic senses are helpful. It's so much more than just knowing somebody's calling on the phone. It's so much more. It honest to God, literally can change your life and how things are going. It can change your perspective. It can seriously just make you feel like, wow, like this earth and the way things operate and this universal energy, this is all amazing. It can open your mind to so many more things going on in how things operate, that you'll just be like, wow, like this is amazing. This is so different than I realized. It can enhance your life so much more. And just for those of you, because I've actually had people ask me, well, some people that I know that I'd like to explain this to, they're very Christian in their background, and that's wonderful. And I think that some people with religious backgrounds are also very, very open to all of these things. They're very open to how they feel. They're very open to feeling positive. That's the everybody. It doesn't matter your background. People want to feel good. They want to feel connected. They want to feel happy. So none of this matters to your background. And for people who are even skeptical out there, well, what is this universal energy that you're talking about? You can go research, go scientifically based, and start researching energy and energetic movement and atoms and different things. This is not all metaphysical, and a lot of people think it's, well, this is metaphysical new age thinking. No, it's actually not. For some of you who want to be on paper, all this energy stuff is documented. There's stuff that there's all kinds of scientific proof on how energy moves, and how different things affect different energy. Now even thought waves affect energy. So background doesn't matter, skeptical or not. All I really have to say for anybody who's skeptical is I think that it's a good thing to be skeptical, truthfully, on lots of things, because there's a lot of not good information out there. But you want to take any of the information that I have said, or that you've read, that feels good to you, and you want to move forward with anything that feels good. If information feels good to you, that's really the key. If you're feeling happy, if it feels good, move forward with that. But these are some reasons of why we have psychic senses, and I really felt like it was good to do a show so that you kind of understood the much broader scale of why have your psychic senses, why be in tune. Because I teach my people not to just be in tune when they want to make a decision. I want you guys to be in tune like daily. As much as you are physical and need to eat and take a shower and do daily exercise or things physical, you want to be using your psychic senses just as much. You want to learn to integrate the two on a daily basis. And once you learn to develop it, a lot of cool things happen. So hopefully you found this helpful. And if you have any questions, email me as always. For those of you who are not in my Higher Purpose Learning group, my spirit community, where we have a lot of discussions, go over to keystothespiritworld.com, and up in the right hand corner there's a thing that says Spirit Community. Go click on that. You can ask to join. It's a private group, so you'll have to be accepted into the group. And I have some super cool stuff coming up, you guys. Also I do many stuff on YouTube. If you're there, subscribe if you like it. If you haven't been there, you might want to check it out, because I also do some mini videos over there. But I'm super excited. I have so much stuff going on for 2018 that you guys are going to love. It's taking me months to do this, so I'm super excited to roll out some new mentorship stuff. I always talk about mentor, and people keep asking me, I need more mentorship stuff. And I do some one-on-one, but I even have more mentorship stuff coming out. And I have some more stuff on spirit communication coming out. I have a lot of things I'm rolling out for 2018. So I hope to see you in my group. I'd love to see you in some of my classes. I've got more coming out. And until next time, have the most amazing day. Aloha.